first of all, thank you everybody for being here. I'll do a little transparency. My son, definitely a millennial, is fond of when I go on a little bit too far of making the famous comment, okay boomer, okay? I don't know how that translates in French or German. I suspect everyone can get the attitude of sometimes people of the boomer generation, of which I'm clearly a part, we need to actually accept the challenges that we're facing. So I'm going to talk this afternoon in a different way. I'm going to walk away from the issue of whether PVC should or should not be banned. Not going to go there, okay? I'm not going to deal with the event. I'm going to deal with the tasks. I'm simply going to say, okay, and I'll have a little fun. We woke up on our side of the pond and there was a tweet and PVC was banned. 5 or 6 years ago, that would not have been a serious possibility. Anybody really want to say it's not a serious possibility today? But on this side of the pond, it could be just as easy, okay? The event, whether or not PVC is banned, is beyond my salary, beyond my capability, what have you. But I've been in PVC for, okay, 30 plus years, and let's just leave the plus like this, okay? I know PVC well, so I'm here today to talk about, let's just start with the presumption something happens and say, what really are we tasked with? What are we going to do? First of all, let's find out if life is good. The most important part of the technology is working. So we're going to do a review, okay, an introduction to review. I'm going to talk about materials, machinery operations, regulatory, and user interface. One of the challenges of this is we have two competing regulatory environments. We have the government regulations that are rapidly moving to change the rules of engagement about materials, and we have the pharmaceutical regulatory environment that is very clearly going to say and continue to say, I'm in charge of how and in what that product gets to the market, okay? Again, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm sure lots of you would like to talk with me about that afterwards, and that's fair game. But that's not going to be this afternoon's talk because otherwise you'd never get to your drinks and meals, etc. So we're going to talk today about outcome, not talk about outcome, we're going to talk about process. So when we talk about will and when, we've traditionally talked about launch speed and cost to sustainability. Okay, and I'm going to dig into that. And the decision tree remains an outcome fog, and I'm going to dig into that. What decisions really have to be made? How do we sort through them? And the magic word, what's a playbook going to look like? Okay? What I'm proposing this afternoon is everyone that's serious about this situation should be developing a playbook today. Okay? A lot of that playbook is going to have to take into consideration, like any good playbook, we don't know how the game is going to go. We need plays ready depending on how the game plays out. Okay? Then I'm going to look at the how, costs, time, approvals, and development, and then we're actually going to get to say, all right, let's take a look at the playbook. Okay? So we're going to focus on the task, not on the outcome. Now, just for fun, how many people here actually work for pharmaceutical biological companies? Okay. How many of you work for packaging, processors, converters, suppliers? Well, we're just about half and half. Interesting group. This is a good mix. Thank you. All right. What is a black swan event? Let's start there. A black swan is an unpredictable event, although more and more, as we've heard today, this is becoming a daily more predictable event that is beyond what is normally expected of a situation and has potentially severe consequences. Black swan events are characterized by their extreme rarity, their severe impact, and the practice of explaining widespread failure to predict them as simple folly in hindsight. Blister packaging has been around, and Montesino officially has tried to do the history of blister packaging. We say the birth was 1963, 1964 with the birth control package, probably, okay, sharing AG in Germany. Okay? Blister packaging has been considered the norm ever since, especially in Europe, where blisters have continued to say, you can grill me all you want afterwards why the state still prefers bottles to blisters. It's the favorite question people love to ask me. I've got a lot of interesting ideas for you, but not now. A total ban on the use of PVC in healthcare packaging really fits the description of a black swan. Okay? Now, frankly, at this conference, less and less than normally it would have been considered a black swan. A playbook is designed to lay out an action plan in the highly unlikely, again, but perhaps more likely event that this ban were to be implemented. And we're going to shift the focus from the outcome, banning PVC, to the task. And the task here is to have that playbook ready and to have some practical things. If you're in a pharmaceutical company and somebody finally said to you, okay, everything changes tomorrow, what's it going to cost, how long, and how are you going to get out of PVC? Most of us quickly will rather say, well, let's talk about whether it's really going to happen. I'm not going there today. I'm going to take it as a given. It's going to happen, and what have we got to do? So, in the event of a ban on the use of PVC in pharmaceutical flexible packaging, what's our playbook? Okay? Well, first of all, we need to know where PVC is used in our company. It was interesting. The tail end of that last section got into a rather interesting comment. Alu, okay, code form foil for anybody from the other side of the pond, is actually more of a polymer structure than it is an aluminum structure. Okay, so you get into some details here. Because its name is alu doesn't necessarily mean it will easily fit into this. I have an expression that's the result of painful years of work. The devil is in the details. And in packaging, there are a lot of details. So we have to look at thermoform webs, clearly PVC. Alu webs, today the majority of them have a lot of PVC. Lidding webs, okay, we tend to forget that not only does the aluminum lidding have aluminum, it's also got a heat seal lacquer that has an awful lot to do with PVC and other materials. So if we're going to get very serious about saying we're out of PVC, the first step in our playbook is to do a serious review and say, where are we using it in our normal flexible packaging? And I'm starting fundamentally on oral solids. Now, frankly, there are issues around other dosage forms. Somebody wants to grab me afterwards, we could talk about that, but today we're going to keep with the basics. So that's where it's used. The next question we have is what machines are involved in this to process PVC or convert PVC materials, and what does that mean for us? Now, I'm old enough to remember the glory days of Microsoft, and since I'm from the other side of the pond, I can gleefully make fun of Microsoft, because I spent many years of my life hearing the famous phrase, oh, it's plug and play, don't worry about it, you're just going to plug it in, everything will work fine. I have zero experience of plug and play, okay? None, all right? So I tend to prefer, let's look at the machines. Let's really slow down and start by saying, okay, we now have the challenge. The machinery we have, what are we going to do? All right? Do we need to buy new machinery? Can we change the machinery? Is there some mix? That's a playbook issue. Okay? It's not a give me an answer to that today. It's time to do the playbook work. Okay? But not only blister machines. We have to look at the machines that are running pouch machines, and we have to look at other machines. Very prevalent in our industry. Very prevalent in blister packaging, what we're going to call PVC blister packaging today. Okay? So the machines to process materials also have to be understood. So we have a list. We have the machines, we have the materials, and we have the products. Oh yeah, we have to make an inventory of the products, my SKUs. Okay? And now we're probably going to start to say, do we even have to triage those products? Okay? What do I mean by triage those products? Many years ago, someone in the contract packaging industry it wasn't me, his name will remain anonymous, said, you know what we're really dealing with here is a difficult question. Are we going to bury the package or are we going to bury the patient? Okay? That question remains as challenging today as it was then. And we may have to decide to triage and say, of the products that I have, what is the risk level for changing and how do I put together a timeline? At the end of the talk, the question was brought up, how do I do a timeline? This has to be part of the playbook. We really have to get serious and begin to say, okay, 80%, 20%, 80% of my volume. Can I immediately go after that? And that 20% that has higher, more complicating values, do I need to gain experience in the learning curve before I target that? Now, I don't have answers today. None of us have answers today. We first need to do the playbook and get to work. Okay? So, the alternative materials, and this begins to get interesting. Now, I'm going to make a comment. One of the very interesting things about this is to watch as things flip over time. During what we've traditionally called the blockbuster era, okay, the driver was regulatory approval. What regulatory agencies said would work for approval tended to keep most of us in packaging pretty busy. Okay, because you did not want to get in the way of an approval. All the pharma people here, anybody ever want to get in the middle of a regulatory charge? Not really good for your career, people, okay? We're now changing to where the driver is consumer approval. And I'm going to play a little. Not only is it patient-focused, it's consumer approval. That consumer approval issue is not to be taken lightly. It's very serious. So as we begin to look at this, we're going to have to take a serious look at these alternatives and continue to work our playbook. So what's out there today? Now, a lot of people have traditionally said PETG, glycol modified polyester. Do I have any colleagues from Eastman here? Anybody from Eastman? I'm going to do them a favor. Correctly, let's call it what it is. It is copolyester, okay? It is polyester monomer, okay, polymerized several times. You do not take glycol and drip it into polyester. Please, if nothing else, take that idea off. That's not the way it's done. Copolyester has been out there as an alternative. It's probably one of the closest almost drop-ins, okay? Next, polypropylene. I was around here in Europe in the 90s when there was a huge push, especially in Germany, to take blister packaging to polypropylene. Okay, it's a known material. It has some very interesting and things that should go into the playbook. It did not happen then. It could well. It's certainly a high candidate today. The one that's probably going to surprise people is my comment on cellophane. How many of you are old enough to remember cellophane? Just a couple. I was afraid of that. I clearly remember cellophane, okay? Now, I'm going to make one grumble, and hopefully this is the only one I make, about the use of words. I'm more careful. We say plastics, we mean synthetic resin. Cellophane is a plastic. It's not made from synthetic resin. It's made primarily from wood chips. More interesting, in the future, it's probably going to be primarily made from hemp. Okay? Kind of an interesting material these days, especially as we really look for sustainability. So when we talk about plastic, let's rethink this for a second. We have these issues. So we have synthetic resin, which normally you would think oil and natural gas is the feedstock, and we have cellophane. Cellophane predates our conventional plastic materials. It was taken over not because of performance primarily, but because of cost. because synthetic resin at that time, so I'll share with some of the younger people later what we used to pay for gasoline. It was really cheap, okay? The price differential was enormous, and none of this was known. It was driven by price. But plastic continues to offer a lot of solutions to packaging. The issues around are not plastic yes or no, it's what type of plastic and what our playbook is going to lead us to. And most of us that grew up in the world of polymers, frankly, plastic, we'd like to get back to the differentiation between plastic and elastic. It has more to do with the state, like solid, liquid, and gas, than it does to the actual material. Now, I'm probably not going to win this discussion outside of this room because the world clearly thinks plastic equals synthetic resin, it's PVC, we're not going to get around this. But just so, again, a little takeaway to go home, and just remember, there are, materials out there that truly are plastic materials that are not started as synthetic resin is. There are other materials. I can't talk a lot, I'm going to tease. I'm aware of at least 2 major companies that have serious drop-in possibilities right now for PVC that are in final testing stage that we will see launched in the next year. I'm a little bit of a cynic. 100% drop-in is just not something I really buy, but they're going to be much easier, much easier to exchange and I think offer some serious potential for exactly what we want to do, Secondly, PVC has no barrier. PVC is terrible as a barrier material, and I grew up and loved selling PVC, For us in pharma, what's the #1 issue of barrier? It's moisture. And man, you put a thing of PVC here and you put moisture the other side, that moisture's going to just come through and be real happy, One of the big challenges we've got is we look to replacing PVC, and again, this is a task list, a playbook, how are we going to handle the barrier? For moisture, for oxygen, for light, We used to quietly say PVC is fundamentally a good barrier against dust, It doesn't keep light out, it doesn't keep oxygen out, it really doesn't keep moisture out, So technology, actually, this is an opportunity to improve and go forward. We have some space to do here. Finally, performance requirements, Speed, performance, how easy is it to process? Something really important, child resistance, Safety, efficacy, the basics of what pharmaceutical packaging is supposed to be about, and training. One of the things we forget to talk about is we develop this playbook, we're going to have to train people to think in a new way. The last time people were trained in this started in 1963, hopefully not too many of the machinery people are here. Are there any of the blister machinery people sitting out here? Because I'm going to say something that'll get me in trouble. You could look at blister machines and fundamentally say the biggest change that we've had since 1963 is the addition of a lot of servo motors. Now, you can have some fun with that and get me in trouble later because they would say, justifiably, that's not quite true. We've done an awful lot of work, But when you look at the training and the changes that we're talking about, this is why the urgency is for a playbook so we can really face what we're going to, assuming the Black Swan event happens, have to do. All right? So, actually, I wanted to start this out. Let's actually treat this as a play. So if you're actually dealing as you would with any playbook and you're getting ready to whatever game is your choice, your football, our football, tennis, whatever, we have playbooks. And so our first play was, what are we going to do in alternative materials? And that's something that should be ongoing. People should be developing the playbook today for their alternative materials, Secondly, what am I going to do with my machinery? How much trouble am I in? All right? You're in a lot of trouble. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, all right? Modifying or replacing because of heating and speed is going to be a serious issue. One of the reasons PVC was so popular is because all these machines for the past 50 years, everyone knew how to run them, okay? The vast majority of machines, when we go to alternative materials, are not going to be plug and play. Serious modifications, anywhere from 40% of the original cost of the machine to outright replacement. Again, we're not arguing about whether you should or you shouldn't. This is a playbook to say we've got to get ready for this, okay? Besides the modify or replace question, all right, and here's some fun. Again, the pharmaceutical people out there, how many of you know how many blister machines you have right now today? Most of you can go anywhere from 5 to 30. There's a lot of machines, and 30 can be a small number. I'm seeing somebody already chuckle and saying, yeah, I wish it was only 30, okay? You've got to begin to have this playbook and say, for example, do I do proof of concept? I take the most difficult machine, I go ahead and decide whether or not I can modify that, and then I have my playbook ready to go. Strongly recommended, okay? Molds. Thermoforming is fundamentally about having the right molds. Those molds are critical in the design of the blister. We're going to have to take a hard look at molds. Can they be redesigned? Do they need plugs, new plug assist, etc.? And finally, when we do this change, how easy is it going to be to put the blister into the carton? Okay? Most of us that have been in this are aware that it wasn't necessarily that easy with the PVC blisters. All right? Play number 4. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the regulatory play is not going to be easy either. Okay? First of all, quality. We're looking at specifications and validation. When we move away from PVC, we are going to have major issues with specification and validation. How do we put a calendar on that? How do we lay out the plan so that we can do it effectively and efficiently? And again, this is not me saying we shouldn't do it. On the contrary, okay? My comment is you should have the playbook ready. And really the question should not be whether or not you can or cannot do it. Have you got the playbook that says, okay, I need X amount of time? Is it 18 months? Is it 24 months? Where is it? Okay? Testing. Accelerated stability tests. Not my favorite subject, okay? As most of you are intimately aware of, this is probably going to mean a lot of accelerated stability testing, okay? You've changed the contact surface between your medicine and your package. You're going to have to prepare for accelerated stability testing and perhaps other testing. And it's the other testing that's probably where you should spend the most time on your playbook. And finally, the submission. The FDA a number of years ago came out with a rather famous post-approval changes document that fundamentally said you can go ahead and make post-approval changes in packaging if it's a cedar known material and you have equivalent or better barrier. And what was said is that if you have those two bases covered, you can go ahead and submit this in your annual report. Make the change and submit it in your annual report. That's the good news of everything I'm talking about today, okay? Now, a lot of pharma companies that I know, even though the FDA has been very clear that that's the regulation, have chosen not to go down that route and prefer a 30-day, where they give the FDA 30 days the opportunity to say yay or nay, okay? Regardless, the submission of these changes is critical to preparing your timeline, your playbook, your being ready to go. And finally, the user interface. This really is that lovely dilemma we've always spoken about. It needs to be child resistant and senior friendly at the same time, okay? So the ideal package for medicine needs to keep children out, okay? And sometimes at home, my father would look at me and say, I've listened to you for years talk about that. It still sounds like an oxymoron to me, okay? Regardless, keeping children out of medicines is really critical, but we still want to make the opening procedure really nice so that patients take the medicine in a compliant fashion. As you pointed out, unit dose packaging makes this even a bigger challenge, okay? So we need the safety child resistant, we need the opening senior friendly, and we need compliance, labels and serialization. At least there, I'm not aware of any issues for your playbook. Okay? So, I'm going to finish up because I promised to let you get out of here at a decent hour. All right? Time, speed, challenges. How much time? All right? And your playbook should deal with this in 3 ways. Materials. How much time to modify the supply chain? Because all of a sudden, you've got to ask yourself that difficult question. And let me be very specific about the supply chain. You're currently buying PVC resin to someone who then calendars that PVC to someone who then sends that to your blister machine. Once you move away from PVC, that supply chain is gone. Okay? You're in a significantly different supply chain. All right? And you have to do the testing of the materials, stability, validation, et cetera. Secondly, the machinery, upgrades versus replacement. Okay? And finally, regulatory. What's your timeline to get the submissions that you need to do, that your team has said, in order to leave PVC, this is what we're going to have to do. That timeline is an important part of your playbook, needs to be done. I couldn't agree more. We're late on getting going on this. Okay? We need to get the playbook done. The cost. All right? It's not going to be pretty. Okay? Nobody likes bad news. I'm not here to sugarcoat this. It's going to be expensive. All right? The materials, again, we always encourage people to focus on the cost per 1,000 dosages, not on the spend. The notorious argument is the difference in cost between alu-alu and PVC-based structures per kilo. It doesn't really mean anything. If you're going to understand the cost, understand how much in one for 1,000 dosages versus the other for 1,000 dosages. That's the number you need to understand. Okay? The machinery, all right. What's the cost to upgrade versus replace? Replacing €2 million blister machines is not fun. Okay? And other, beware of hidden and undiscovered costs. The one that's probably most hidden is the training. Most of you have operators who've been running PVC blister machines for anywhere from 15 years on. Okay? It's going to require work, effort, and money to change that. Okay? Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I'll be glad to take, I think, questions.